Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How is Chicago doing? Or
Chicago
Illinois?
is raining this morning.
You have what we had
Oh,
yesterday.
Yep.
If
We're
you
gonna
have
have it.
tomorrow will be a nice day if what you have what I have today goes your way.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. No problem. I ordered it just for you.
Whoa. Whoa. Whoa.
there we go. It's the same guy. Oh, looks like it's going to be a fun day. Look at those futures just sink.
They're sinking. ADP came out. Um, Basically it was private business US added only 37,000 workers in May, the lowest since March of 2023. Compared to a downwardly revised 60,000 in April and a forecast of 115. So we talked about, I've always talked about jobs. But yeah, everything just turned red. Yeah. I've always talked about, I thought that the thing that would flip, because the consumer is resilient. We keep hearing, and it's only going to be resilient if they have jobs. And we'll see, if the job, we have a Friday non-farm payroll and unemployment rate come out. And we'll see what happens.
The detail of that was important.
Go
The
ahead,
jobs
Bob.
that are the jobs that are weak and not hiring are companies 250 employees or less, which is small companies.
Majority of the
That's
workforce.
70% of the
Yep.
workforce works
Yep.
for small companies. That's the key information.
Yeah. And you're even seeing though, like yesterday I showed Microsoft was laying off more too, and some of these high techs are laying off, hundreds of thousands of people too. So yeah, so we got to watch that. And the non-farm payroll comes out Friday. It's going to be a big deal, and you can see what's happening. The futures were up this morning on an NVIDIA and tech trade, and we can go get the report here.
But the economy is doing great. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal, right? It's
Well,
growing like crazy.
Stock market's up, but again, stock market is not the economy. So
that's separate.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we're the only major, country that has not lowered rates, and we'll see if they do. I saw some Fed talk yesterday that they're not ready to lower rates, and it's could be political.
I don't know why. You
Well,
should be lowering rates.
yeah. Well,
You hit the target 2%, right?
Yeah. Yep. So anyway, it's when you look at markets. Here, hold on. We go here. Oh, here we are on it. You can see in the SPY, SPY, we're still just sideways, even though markets were up yesterday. We're going to open about the same. We're still under resistance. The resistance is right on a rolling Bollinger Band, upper Bollinger Band, still above the 200. That's good. Sideways pattern, flattened out on the oscillators. Same thing we've been seeing. Got a gap back here that will probably be filled at some time. The Dow closed a little bit above, not a full candle, above the 200 yesterday. Looks like we were going to open. Okay, this was a half hour ago and markets were up. So all these lines are going to be off. But again, look how the Bollinger Bands are narrowing, okay, converging. Again, sideways movement. Usually when you get that, that's just compression and it's going to go one way or the other. And looks like right now, looking at the histograms that we're going to see it go down or sideways more. We're above the 9. And again, we have the big report out Friday for non-farm payrolls. Qs are above the 200. We had this nice bump up, but sideways since then, right along resistance, above the 9. Again, resistance is hard. We're sideways, just not much happening in the broader indices. Nothing exciting to get them going. Indecision, just kind of waiting. We've seen this a lot. Gold. Let's take a look at gold real quick. Gold again, just sporadic, but right along the resistance. We're seeing also the oscillators or the Bollinger Bands converging like we're seeing everything else. A little bit, flat on the oscillators. Same kind of thing. Bitcoin. Bitcoin's come right back up. We're just right here on this resistance line that we popped above. It was support for a while. The 9's coming down. So we're going to see what happens. And you got the 20. So we're right between the 20 and the 9. There's going to be a squeeze here one way or the other. You're still looking at negative MACDs and the oscillators, turning down. But sideways pattern, smoother than what we see in gold. NVIDIA. This was up this morning a little, but still right along resistance between the 9. We got support resistance. So again, sideways. Got the Bollinger Bands converging. A little bit of a bump on the MACD, but mostly flat. Just this is when you have the Mag 7 do this, you're going to see the Qs, and you're going to see the S&P do the same thing. Meta. So Meta had the news the other day, and it came right up and just kind of stopped right where it's going to about open again. Above the 9, above the 200. Got to watch the upper Bollinger Band. Again, the Bollinger Bands are converging. It's like second verse, same as the first. Tesla. Again, these are the stocks that really move the indices. Tesla came up and then closed 2 days below the 9. Tried to get above it, wicked up, closed right below it again. Tesla looks like, with the MACD going down and the Bollinger and the stochastic going down, looks like it's going to just be lower to sideways. But again, right along resistance. I moved you see resistance again. Here we have what we call, the 9 comes up. It's that resistance line. That's when we start seeing price action move underneath. Pattern that's pretty prevalent in most cases. That's what happens. Google. Here we have the 9 come up. We're right back down on resistance, came down a little on Google. It's still under the 200. We tried to make a run, but now we're down below the 9 again and hitting right off the 20 right here. So again, oscillators showing us a negative move on Google too. Apple. Come on, Apple. Here we go. Apple way under the 200, right at resistance. Got the oscillator or the Bollinger's sideways, again, sideways pattern, right along the 20, underneath the 20, above the 9. But again, oscillators are flattish. Just Amazon, same thing. Amazon right along resistance, sideways pattern, is above the 200. The 20 is going to cross the 200, looks like. Again, just nothing to make it to pop yet. We got, look at these Bollingers are converging pretty quickly also. Palantir, we had that nice run up. Earnings came, dropped it, came back up right to resistance. Again, here we are sitting right at resistance the last 3 days. Look at the Bollinger Bands still converging, getting tighter and narrower. Just the lack of volatility throwing through Palantir also. When we look at the momentum stocks we had 10 of them on the list. 9 of them now have had the green light of death show up, which happens often on these kind of stocks. You can see there's Waste Management, 3 days. This was on the list. The only one that still is open on that list is Carvana. And we talked to Payment, I think, a little bit about this. And we talked about, at what point would you get in on a Carvana? And we talked about the upper Bollinger Band and said, this would have been a good level. It's still rolling. What I like about this, even though it doesn't have a resistance, is you do have sell orders up here. You are basically trading between the 9 at support and the upper Bollinger Band. Probably not a place to buy here. We always talk about try to buy things on sale. Again, the market's going to be down today, but this is one of those momentum stocks. Anytime we could see resistance show up, but right now, Carvana is still running in the list. We looked at some of the ones under the 200. Hershey, We talked about Hershey. We talked about, how to set buys, below. Here's where we, came on the list. We talked about going back and look for where you see support or resistance and maybe set your buys there. So if we'd set our buys here, we would have hit and we would be up, we would set our buys at 158.23. And right now we'd be at 163.08. And you'd have resistance right here at the 50. If you're playing between the lines, you might set a sell order at that point and get out with your profits. Or if you're a little bit more riskier, you may just try to hit past that. But today, again, it's going to be a lower start, it looks like. So make sure you put in your stops and maintain your profits, So again, protecting your profits, especially on days like this, is very important. Someone brought up yesterday on semiconductor, kind of popped up right up to its upper Bollinger Band. We'll watch this and see. And I don't like buying at the Bollinger Band, especially when we're going kind of a sideways, little bit of a bump on semiconductors. We saw bumps yesterday in the semiconductor industry. When we looked at watch list, Oracle had a pretty good day yesterday. Still moving up off the 200. It maintained 200, still moving up along the upper Bollinger. Watch out for resistance right above it. Support, you're getting a golden cross of the 9 over the 200. Still got a nice move up on the MACD. DBX we talked about yesterday. DBX has a nice run. It's over the 200, got above the 9. Still running up in between the 9 and the 20, which is support, and the upper Bollinger Band. Started finally getting the crossover, looks like today, of the MACD. We didn't have that yesterday. Microchip had a nice bounce yesterday, went up. So these are, you want to watch these. You don't get in. You want to make sure you get above that 200. Again, the Bollingers are converging. So this wouldn't be anything I'd get into until I had confirmation that we're not going to, this isn't a false positive, that we're actually moving up. I want to see it come back and back test the 200 and see if we can keep moving. But, I'd keep it on the watch list for sure. We talked about UNH. UNH is still just going sideways. It's above the 9, but the 9 is tipped down a little bit, even though we have the MACD crossover. I'm still waiting, to see if this will pop back up. But, the Bollingers are quickly moving in on this. And if we get into the, where the Bollingers come and converge and they just go sideways, we could see UNH remain sideways for a while. And, not anything that we'd want to really to get in on at this point. CrowdStrike had earnings yesterday. You can see it was doing fine. I think today it's going to open up down. They weren't happy with the earnings, down negative 44 cents per share. So you're going to see CrowdStrike come down today. And again, earnings are a two-way street. When I trade, I always, in a swing trading position, get out before earnings. However, we've seen earnings go good and it goes up 15%. Earnings go bad, it goes down 15%. So again, swing trading's in it for the singles and the doubles, not the home runs. And that's why you put your pinch runner on and get out of the game at that point, at least from my trading plan. We looked at DG, had a good earnings report, Dollar General. And we're going to see that pop probably today. Yeah, here you go. See, it popped on earnings above the Bollinger Band. Probably not something I want to trade above the Bollinger Band, but again, you have a nice gap in here on DG. And I think Dollar Tree is reporting today.
I think they reported yesterday.
That was DG. The Dollar Tree, I think, was
okay.
today. So you can see Dollar Tree got a little bit of a bump off of Dollar General. So we'll see what happens on Dollar Tree today. But again, it went up above the upper Bollinger Band. So you guys were playing with Rolls Royce yesterday. Margaret, are you still in? Is Margaret out there?
Yeah, I'm still in.
Okay.
I got my fingers on the button to sell.
That's right, because you said in this particular stock you couldn't do a stop or any kind of limit order to sell on this. So Margaret's anxiously waiting to see when she's going to pull the trigger on this one. But you can see, it was a nice run. And I like these, it doesn't have any kind of upper resistance yet to gauge against, but these that kind of bounce between, support at the 9 and resistance. It came up and it pulled over. Okay. And you see that and you're like, oh, wow. But when you look at the chart, it's still within the bands of going up. You could have sold, I think, Paul, you said you got out because you saw sideways pattern here. And you see that a lot on these momentum stocks. You see sideways patterns, and it's no wrong. There's no wrong way of getting out. You get out, that's fine, because it could do the opposite. But sometimes you'll see it, pop up like that. And you see, like you guys were into GEV. A lot of you guys were trading this, and I just wanted to show you. If you get out, here's GEV did this a lot. Sideways back in. It gets outside the Bollinger, sideways back in, up to the Bollinger, sideways, up to the Bollinger, sideways, up to the Bollinger, sideways. So on these momentums, it's not necessarily a bad thing when it goes sideways. It's just resetting within, the parameters of its upward trend. So again, now we're popping up a little bit more, and we'll see if it keeps going up when we do that sideways. Be careful, you got some sell orders right above that, guys. But
just wanted to Margaret, Rolls Royce is up 9 weeks in a row.
I know.
If you put up a weekly on GEV, Rolls Royce, so I'm not anxious I wouldn't be anxious to try to, let me sell. It just, these stocks do it. Rolls Royce is one of them. So yeah, that's all I had to say.
Okay. APH, you guys were talking about APH on the Discord yesterday. You see the same thing. Sideways up to the Bollinger, sideways up, sideways. Now we're going up. So again, I like the ones that trade between support and resistance. Don't be afraid of sideways as long as you're within, your trading bands. This one got a little bit below the 9, but technically it's still touching the 9. So a lot of, purists would say, I'm not getting out yet. And then it kept rolling up. So again, just watch. You got some sell orders on the top, and you might have a resistance line come on, but just keep your stops out there just in case. Again, I'm talking swing trade. I'm talking investment. If we go to a weekly chart, that's more of how I would invest in a stock on a weekly chart as opposed to a daily chart. I would not invest on a daily chart. I would just trade on a daily chart.
Yeah, on that drop there, that the whole market went down on that candle.
Yep.
So it got dragged down.
But the nice thing I like about it, Paul, is it closed up. It started down, but it closed up. So that's a good sign.
Yeah, these are the ones I love.
This one here, this one took a real dump yesterday. That wicked down, and again, you got the 9. It came up the day after Paul brought this to our attention. It went up, hit the resistance, and then yesterday it just dumped back down. So came back up and closed just underneath the Bollinger Band. But you got to watch these. Momentums can whipsaw you around a lot. So hopefully, if you were in it, you had to stop, and kept your profits, because I don't know when your cost basis was, but I know that Paul brought it up about at this point. And so if people got in, they might have got, stopped out or might have made a loss on that. The momentum stocks, you're trading at the top, you're trading along Bollinger Bands. The system that I look at trying to find them when they're back here and they get above the 9 and the 200 and try to ride this whole party up, as opposed to trying to, get a couple points, 3, 4, 5, 6 points up here where I can get maybe 10 or 15 points riding it from this point. But you got to really search to get it at this point. Whereas on momentums, you can go in to FinViz and see the 52-week highs, and you can go in and hit them back at this point. So again, what was the other one? Oh, APLD. Sorry, I'm taking a little more time. We talked about this yesterday. We talked about, what should I do? And we had resistance up here. I said, well, it kind of hit resistance. It came up, opened a little bit up, hit resistance, and came back down after wicking back. So again, you're outside of the Bollinger Band. You have resistance up here. I don't like chasing these at this point. Could it go up? Yeah, you got sell orders up here. We have a down day, but that's quite a move with a gap. Again, this is like hitting a triple or a home run here. If you were in that stock, that was awesome. but is it the right time to get in? For me, no. Okay, the way it looks. And let's see what else I got.
Core weave.
CRWV. So again, core weave, sideways here. You can see here, but it stayed within the bands of the support and resistance, and then popped back up again above the Bollinger Band. Again, when you look at this and momentum, you're riding these momentum lines up, the upper Bollinger Band. The system that I use, I try to get back in, at this point, gets above the 9, you have a crossover of the MACD, and you ride it that way. Okay. And then you look at, where you might want to get out on a resistance. This here is exciting. It's fun, but you got to be careful because you can see what happens. You can pop down, pop up. You got to really be, you got to be aware of what's going on. I like to run them a little longer than that, but momentum trading is momentum trading. And if you have the right trading plan for momentum, you can make some money. It's a little bit, you got to pay a lot more attention to it, in my opinion. Okay, but you guys did well on this one for sure. One more. We talked last week because I wanted to follow up when we have discussion. We talked about urban. Remember last week it popped up and someone asked about, well, should I get in? I said, well, you're outside of the Bollinger and it's going to pull back in, just statistically. And then we had resistance come on. You can see we've kind of gone sideways. We're hitting resistance for 2 days here after we bounced a little bit. So again, this is why I don't like to chase. I like the market to settle out a little bit. Again, it's sideways. So we've seen this sideways. The difference between this and some of the momentums is this has a resistance level in it that would keep me from getting in. If this line wasn't here, we saw, in some of those momentum stocks, you might see after this, since it's within the trading band here of support resistance, it might go up. But right now, urban has to get past that. We're seeing the MACD, look at the histograms go down. So you use all the gauges and you say, what is my risk? What is my reward? And then you make a decision on whether you're going to get in or out based on your own risk tolerance. So urban, it went up. I wouldn't have chased it. You might have got a little bump had you done it. But right now, you might be down, but you have resistance. You just got to be careful. That's all I got. Sorry, Trent. There was a lot of stuff I was trying to catch up on.
All right, let's look at volatility real quick. This has been a leading indicator of where markets are headed. We have been below the 19 level, which is the investable bucket. But I want to point out today the ADP job numbers came out, futures dropped. I don't know where they're at right now, but you can see on the VIX volatility index, which represents the volatility of the S&P 500, we're sort of at this 1968 or so line where we've been before, and seems to be sort of a pivot place going back to the first of the year. We could easily go, something positive could come out, some sort of headline could come out. But from what I'm seeing, we're going to likely see a pivot of some level, where volatility will increase, so that'll expand. And as we all remember, volatility can work in our favor if you're a very short-term trader or a day trader or a more of a less than 15 days trader. Volatility actually works in your favor. So if if you had bought, stocks here and traded them, you would have made money going back to April 7th. You have made money because volatility subsided, markets reversed and went higher. We're now at a point again, we're at a pivot that chances are we will see volatility come up against the 19 again. And the question will be, will we go into the chop bucket again? Time will tell, but right now what options market is telling us is we're more of in a neutral position, more of a suppression of volatility. So you're not getting those massive swings like we were back in, beginning of April through today. So those that percentage of volatility expansion on your individual positions is now getting more suppressed. So when you do a swing trade or something, you calculate that into your thinking of where is your exit point. And as volatility gets suppressed, that range of that swing is most likely to subside, not be as much. When volatility expands, you're going to get bigger movement and more vol out of those positions, which creates bigger, gains or losses depending on how you position. But volatility, I think, is at a point where we're going to see it ramp back up. When I look at the 3-month volatility picture, it continues to fall. VIX 3-month average, it continues to fall. That supports the investable bucket. That supports markets rising up or floating up. I don't think they're like going to the moon up. They're more just floating up with the tide. And I think that's the major point here, is that if the market in a stock is going up, no matter what you think, it's going to continue to do what it's going to do. And so the best way to make money in that is to just let that tide rise you up. And when that tide turns, and oftentimes you can see that in the volatility expansion of that stock, then you put in your risk management, positions or trailing stop losses. You tighten your trailing stop losses up, and you protect your profits. I think Margaret posted something on the Discord about, I like having to adjust my limit orders and adjusting them up, which means that the tide is rising. But at some point, those limit orders might get a little tighter because you'll see that rounding of markets. And I think that goes for long term, that goes for short term and intermediate term. And I think right now we're in that investable bucket. And nothing other than a news headline, economic reaction to economic data, the reaction to the ADP number. What is it presently is, if we look at futures, the S&P 500 E-mini futures are down 200 basis, or basically 2 points. Not much. If you look at the NASDAQ, it's down 10.75. Not a big reaction, right? But what this may be telling us is we're coming up against support. When we look at volatility, we're down at support, or excuse me, when you look at the S&P or the NASDAQ, we're up against resistance of some level. And I think that's what we have. This here is hey, let me review my risk management policy. What am I doing? Am I hanging out in the wind, or am I protecting my profits? And I think you can see that, when I look at when I was going through the 12 portfolio this morning, I'm seeing a couple things. Berkshire continues to trade below the 15 and the 62, but above the 200. Microsoft above the 15. That's all bullish, but are we running out of steam here? If I look at the volume behind it, is this volume favoring continue to move higher in Microsoft? Not so much. I look at Amazon, right at the 15, above the 200, and above the intermediate trend. Apple, this continues to slide south. Everything is pointing that Apple will continue to go south. NVIDIA looks like to open up at 142.10, so roughly, 90 cents or so higher than where it closed yesterday. It's still pushing up, but if I look at the chart, and I just put a cursor on the top of May 29th's high for the intraday, I pretty much hit it there at the same place, February 19th, and then back here on what is that, October of 24. That to me is like, just visually, just off the top of my head, that is a concern. So if I start to see that and the volume not be enough to push it higher, chances are we are up near high and a resistance level on NVIDIA. So what do? I tighten my stops. Maybe I take some profits off the table. And if it pulls back to the 15, in my case, the trade trend line, and holds, then it's possibly another building strategy. But as you can see, it's just trailing up this trade trend line at this point. Google showed up as the last couple of days or yesterday broke below my trade trend line, which is a signal that we're seeing some weakening. It's below the 200, it's above the intermediate trend line. So it's in this sort of pocket, looking to open up a couple cents higher today. But to me, Google is running out of steam overall. And if you just draw a simple line like that, that tells me just visually, this is a barrier for Google right here at about 175 or so. That's a barrier. That's a hard line. It's got to cross before it goes higher. So when I look, I look at Meta, similar thing to NVIDIA. I mean, it's just, there is some resistance in these areas. So pay attention. Looks like it's going to open up a couple, $2 higher or so on Google, but it's 15. No, excuse me, Meta. I'm talking Meta here. It's got momentum. It's moving higher, but it's in this resistance area. So be cautious of that. If I look at Bitcoin, this is another example of we've broken through my trade trend line. It's become resistance now. Where is it headed? If I'm just visually just looking at the chart real quick, where's support? 101. There's support there potentially, but from what I see is we can't break through the trade trend line and move higher. I have a target of about 114 based on last night's calculations for today. That's the high end it could hit. And I think the low end was right around $101. So take this in account. This event here is something to take into account. We're seeing a rollover. We're seeing it in Ethereum is, accumulation possibly situation here below the 200, above the trade, above the intermediate. So when you're looking at this, take volatility in account, take the overall market direction account, look at where we've come from, and ask yourself, is the market exhausted or is it in an accumulation phase? Ethereum here could easily be an institutional accumulation phase. Boom, boom. It's probably started, if so, it started early May. And is moving sideways. This could potentially be a breakout, or it could be a failure. Just take that into account. So those are some of the things I'm looking at. It's been a good run since mid-April, and you got to take that into account of how markets just don't go up forever. They will retract and they will retrace. I mean, if anybody uses Fibonacci retracement tools, you can pretty much pinpoint exactly where, if you're going to see a 30%, 50%, 60% retracement in something. But bottom line is, right now is, I think, something to do today. Check your stops, check your stops, check your risk management process, and review that. Because the worst thing that we can hear is, China says, screw you, we're not going to do a tariff deal, and boom, markets go south and you lose all your profits. So that's what I got for you today. Let's open up to the floor. Questions, charts, ideas. Patrick, what you got in Europe?
A stock called Burberry, BRBY. It's up 73% since April the 7th and 48% in the past month.
Jeepers.
I can't get that one. It must be on European exchange.
Yeah.
Did you say BRBY?
Yep.
Correct. Yeah.
No.
Burberry. It's a luxury brand good.
I mean, it must be pretty good over there for rich people.
They're selling well in China. You see, the Chinese are into luxury goods. They buy a lot of
Yeah.
apparel.
So this is This
Do
is
they
a
make them in
daily.
China? I wonder if they make them in China. You know, a lot of that, like Ralph Lauren and all that stuff gets made over there for US stuff, you know, the high end stuff.
You know, I don't think Burberry. What do they do? Is it purses and stuff?
They make clothing and luxury goods and bags and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah. So that's
Plan.
Burberry right there. That's a daily chart of it. If you're able to trade something like this, in
My
my
wife just
opinion,
bought a
you're
Burberry jacket for $600. That was $1,800.
You did?
oh wow.
She did.
Oh, wow. That's your
Yeah, they're a
wife?
luxury brand. They're pretty expensive.
Yeah.
Wow.
Looks as though, I mean, you could see some level of
Yeah,
resistance
there's a
in the
potential
area it's in.
upside of another 36% up to 1,400. And that's the predicted target price, 1,400.
Jeez.
I buy my luxury coats at the farm store payment. Called
Tractor.
Carhartt.
Get
Called
mine at
Carhartt.
Walmart, Goodwill.
Cool.
And what does everybody think about a potential black swan event or geopolitical event in the next week or so? Because Trump has gone silent for 3 days. That's very unusual, especially with the news in Russia. I mean, the Russians could be tempted to use tactical nuclear weapons in the theater of war in Ukraine, and that would irradiate all the precious metals. Can you imagine the impact that would have?
Okay. When
Did you
people
hear
talk
that?
about nuclear war, is it just talk? I mean, how long have we been talking about this? Who's dropped a nuclear bomb on somebody? Nobody. If you do that, that is like, okay, shit's gonna hit the fan so hard, everybody's gonna go ballistic, and then it's over with. I think this whole like Putin dropping a bomb, nuclear bomb, and annihilating an
No,
enormous amount of people.
no, they're going to use tactical nuclear weapons. These are very
What does
short.
that mean?
Well, it means that
Smaller.
it will probably neutralize hundreds of thousands of troops in a short vicinity, but it would irradiate probably 20 or 30 miles of.
But think about if that happens, then what? You know, if you drop in a tactical and you annihilate 100,000 troops, therefore somebody else is going to drop a million.
America will do nothing. They'll wash their hands of Europe. They don't care if Europe irradiates itself. It doesn't matter.
Oh,
Patrick, I think that's wrong. Number one.
Yeah.
Okay. But I do think that we fought. I just went to our family cemetery, and we have plenty of my relatives from World War I and II who fought in Europe for the freedom of Europe, and here we are again fighting in Europe. And so I think the mentality and the temperament of Americans is, why do we keep going over there and fighting the same war over and over?
Because we don't want to fight in the USA. That's why.
It would be prudent for the USA not to respond, because that would then have a complete Armageddon. So I think they would have to sacrifice Europe, because really, otherwise there's an escalation.
I don't think that the U.S. is going to sacrifice Europe. I don't think there would not be a response if Russia did use tactical nuclear weapons. I think there would definitely be a response.
Like, what is that? That's humongous. I mean, isn't it? I mean, it isn't like dropping a drip of water on an ant. It's like pretty sizable. I mean, it's a nuclear bomb.
I do think, Patrick, that Ukraine is poking the bear there, trying to incite something to get either Europe or NATO or somebody to get involved in this war.
Basically what's happened is that Ukraine is a very, very small power compared to Russia, and it has adequately acquitted itself up to a short time ago on the battlefield and held. I mean, Putin was supposed to overrun Ukraine in 3 days, and he didn't. And basically his weapon systems have been depleted. He's been shown to be his nuclear tactical airborne fleet is Soviet. It's Soviet era, and those bombers that have been destroyed will not be replaced because they are too old and antiquated, and it will take them 10 years to replete and repair those bombers.
In the warehouse today. It was, I think it was picked up on Monday.
If you, yeah.
Patrick, you took the wind out of this show.
Yeah, well,
You dropped your own nuclear bomb.
because that's why Trump has been so silent, because he's not in the loop with regard to this, because this was a tactical sort of undercover operation that's been kept under wraps for 18 months.
Which operation is that?
This is the drone strike on the 5 Russian bomber bases. They've taken out 35% of their airborne nuclear tactical operation.
Who knew that Russia had 500 plus drones? That sounds crazy to me.
I know.
This is a chart of gold on a weekly chart. This is gold futures. And, you know, trying to align something with Patrick's nuclear war situation. Is this a accumulation phase in gold over the last, since the week of April 14th? And could we see, if something were to transact like that, would gold futures just skyrocket from here? You know, it just continues, you know, you were talking about, Mark, about sort of accumulation areas. You know, we see it here the week of April 8th, 2024. You see a bit of a breakout, similar kind of situation in this area, November of 2024 through January of 2020 or January 21st, 2025. And now we're seeing it sort of again. Is the world going, hey, this stuff is getting a little hairy with tariffs and possible tactical and nuclear strikes and all this? Is the world moving towards gold and saying, hey, this is the only thing we can really depend on at this point? So something, you know, I think these little accumulation periods is something to pay attention to, because gold could be easily another breakout towards, 4,000.
Oh, Bitcoin also.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean,
what are you going to do with gold?
well, I had that conversation the other day when I was in Savannah. Ladies, like, all my friends are saying to buy gold. I'm like, okay, if I walk in here with a piece of gold, can I pay for anything? And she goes, no. I'm like, well, okay, how about if I come in with a gold coin? How are you going to make change? I can't. Okay, all right. So you're going to lug I was like, you'd be better off buying more ammo and guns to protect the little gold you have, because that's what you're going to need. If we get to a point where it's a gold rush on gold and everybody abandons every currency, you're going to have more guns. And I promise you don't have enough, because you got to protect your gold. And so some of this stuff, I'm like, wow, we're talking big black swan events. Like, this is like total Armageddon kind of thinking. And I just look at this and I go, okay, let's flip the script a little and look at the contrarian side of this. This is when everything is so peak of emotionally peak, like we've seen with 2024 and the S&P. It's going to go, and it's going through the roof, this, that, and the other. It always reverses when things get so bad, like 2009, so bad, everybody's bleeding out, markets turn, they start to move higher. And I think, are we in that kind of phase right now? Are we in that phase of it's so like geopolitically crazy? Are we about to see, should we be thinking more of a contrarian point of view? Thoughts, anyone?
The big problem is Putin, because he's now backed into a corner, and there is probably machinations going on trying to either assassinate him or replace him, because there's turmoil in Russia now because of this this event that's happened, because it means that their Asian nuclear protection is diminished quite a lot, because Murmansk has been hit, and over Vladivostok way has been hit as well. So that takes out the Pacific protection, and so they're at 6s and 7s at the moment.
I think there's a lot of turmoil kind of everywhere, not only in Russia, but I think look what happened in France over the weekend. They won some tournament, and then look what's happening in China with all the factories down and people not getting paychecks. I mean, you're seeing it around the world, this uprising of dissatisfaction. So we're definitely more in a powder keg worldwide, globally, than we have been. So, but again, it all comes back to economics. And when people are hungry, they start getting the pitchforks out. And we haven't hit it here in the US quite yet, but we could be close.
What's happening with the ports? Are the ports still functioning? And they haven't. There's been no news about the activities from ports with regard to the activity that's going on in the main, like LA and Baltimore.
I think Bob usually is our port guy because he lives next to a guy that works at the ports. When he comes back, we'll ask. But you know, the one thing that we were trying to be scared at over here, you know, our press is that we're going to have empty shelves. I haven't seen them yet over here. Okay, has anyone seen them in the States here? Do you have any over there in London? Or are you still
there's
well
no there's no apparent.
Okay, so until something like that happens, you know, I don't know, but if Bob comes back, we'll get a port report because
during COVID there was this shortage of toilet rolls, and people were panic buying toilet rolls in the
toilet bowls.
No, toilet paper.
Oh, yeah, we had that too because Bob bought it all up. You know, Bob went and bought it up a couple weeks ago. So you know,
he has got a big closet. He has to have a big closet.
He's got that big boat. So while this discussion is going on, if you guys have questions, I'm answering things on the chat about stocks. So feel free to put some over there if you want. Anyway, so other than that, Patrick, what do you worry about?
Well, I mean, isn't that enough?
I guess the way I look at it, I used to get upset about stuff like that, and then I realized there's really nothing I can do about it, Patrick.
No, there isn't. The other major thing that's happening is the Middle East. I think there's coming to a crisis because over here there's been a massive rally outside the Houses of Parliament today over the Palestinian. The tide has turned over here, and Starmer's under pressure to recognize Palestine as a state.
Well, that's probably not going to happen, at least from a U.S. point of view, for the next 3.5 years. I heard Greta Thunberg's going over there, so I think everything will be fine.
Yeah, but there is a movement in Europe among the EU countries to formally recognize Palestine very soon, because every year they have this vote in the UN, and it's passed unanimously that there should be a peaceful solution, and there's only half a dozen countries, including the US, who vote against it every year. And that's been going on for 55 years.
Patrick, you've brought up in the past the percentage of stocks over the 220. Just to give you guys an idea, this is the stocks over 200 a day moving average. As you can see, it's ticking up as well. The 50 as well, same thing. It's sort of coming to this resistance level that we saw back last fall. And then the 200 still below 50% range, still in this sort of resistance level. So 41% of stocks are trading still or above, trading above the 200, or 60% or 59% are trading below the 200-day. So to get the big bullish swing to go again, we need the 200, the stocks to be, anywhere 50 to 60% over the 200. And that will bring the 50 and the 20 number of those stocks over those two levels as well. So once again, I think we're sort of sitting in this neutral standpoint in these geopolitical events and that kind of thing.
So what is
short-term sway things.
What is your opinion regarding the next 4 weeks? Is there any political events in the United States that's going to swing that upwards with tariff news?
I'm not sure the tariff, tariff is every day here. Yeah, it's an adventure every day, Patrick, which way it goes. I can't predict that. I do know that
Great big beautiful bill.
going through our Senate, is our budget bill, and it's in the Senate now. So that's kind of a big thing everyone's
That's a
looking
big
at.
deal. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Bob,
Hey.
Patrick, I got a couple things. We want to talk about dollar devaluation from the chat line, but Patrick brought up what's happening in the ports. You got a friend that works at the ports. What's going on?
Slow down. There are boats that are on the water now heading in. But right now they're working like half days at Newark. In LA, they have a lighter load, but they're not as crammed. A lot of the ships are coming in and bringing empties back to China and the other countries.
Okay. Thanks, Bob. We had a question about the devaluation of the US dollar. What is our solution to the devaluation? I'm opening it up.
Isn't typically when the dollar devalues, it makes our goods and our services more attractive to outside situation, outside the United States?
Well, I think devaluing means purchasing power. I think what you're talking about is the lower dollar index, okay, against other currencies. I think he's talking about devaluing the dollar as far as, and tell me if I'm wrong, I think it was Joseph asked this about, Joseph, are you on still, Joseph? Are you there? I don't see him.
Yeah, I'm still here.
So what are you talking about, devaluing of purchasing power, or what are you about the dollar? You asked a question.
Yeah, the dollar devaluation and our buying power, kind of like a solution. Like I'm looking at silver as another option for boosting the staying power of the dollar.
And the direction we're going to go.
Yeah.
So this is the dollar here, dollar index, DXY index. And as you can see, we've been in this range for a while. And then it's almost inverse to gold. And that's that middle one here. Mark, what do you have to say about this?
About the devaluation of the dollar? Well, I believe it is, because that's why I'm into Bitcoin. Okay, because I believe that my purchasing power, if I had $100,000 and I kept it in the dollar and put it in treasuries, or I had $100,000 and put it in Bitcoin, that in 10 years I'm going to be a lot richer in Bitcoin than I am in the dollar. Okay, and that's my personal belief. So I think as long as we keep printing money as we are, as long as we keep spending money more than we're bringing in, which we are, the value of the dollar is going to go down. And they want the value of the dollar to go down so that our products are cheaper and we can bring back manufacturing to the US. That's the whole idea here, in my opinion.
But a cheaper dollar means more expensive imports, and because you have a trade deficit, that means
right.
The overall is going to be more
right.
more indebtedness.
Yeah, exactly. That will help us become cheaper to manufacture here than and do our own. That's the whole idea, I think, Patrick, of bringing the dollar down brings up the cost of imports. So why don't we make it here? Because we can make it at par or a little cheaper because of that.
But there's some products you just cannot do overnight because, like, for example, pharmaceuticals, it takes you 5 to 10 years to build factories.
We have a lot of capacity over here, and I've been watching the pharmaceuticals. And they not only they have capacity, but they're starting to build onto their current factories. So, and I think also with the current administration, they're fast tracking the permits to get this stuff done. So it might be a little faster than we're used to.
Okay.
But I'm not disputing what you're saying, Patrick.
Yeah, the demographics is against you because you don't have the highly skilled people that you would need to recruit for these pharmaceutical companies in a short space of time. That will take time to train them.
I think with AI, Patrick, we're going to have a lot of medical people out of work. They might find that job attractive.
I want to throw 2 cents in on that. They're not. If you walk into pharmaceutical factories that produce medicine, that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Machines do everything, and they just have the average worker.
We have a big GSK factory over here. I think it's GSK.
But just so you know, Patrick, the reason why I'm saying that, because in my age of doing construction, commercial construction work, I've been involved in a lot of pharmaceuticals, and I've been in those factories, and they're just your standard Coca-Cola guy.
What do you mean by that? Casey doesn't understand.
I mean, in the factories of Coca-Cola, they have got the machines run everything, and they got these guys on golf carts, and all they do is run around taking care of issues. But formulas, mixtures, everything is done by automation.
I mean, that's manufacturing in general. More and more you're seeing that across the board.
Yeah.
You
And
know?
the Amazons now, I don't know if you've seen the latest Amazon warehouse. Remember they used to have the cage used to come up on the robot would bring that cage up to the worker and then he would pick out of there what the light said. Well, he's not doing that anymore. A robot is doing that.
Yeah. So really it's the skilled robotics focused person who's going to be the
Fixing
hire
those robots. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to be retrained, go to school, learn about robotics and mechanics of them, things of that nature.
Yeah. All right, we are 2 minutes before the market open. This has been a interesting call about geopolitics and how it's all affecting our world, which is it's totally great. It makes it interesting. So any geopolitical ideas you have, bring them tomorrow.
Hey, it's all about money at the end of the day, right? If someone drops a nuke, you're going to see the stock market take a big nuke.
Yeah.
Watch the
Who makes hazmat suits?
I've been answering the stock questions over on the chat. So for those who wanted stock questions, sorry, sometimes we get off, of stocks, but again, in the big picture, it all matters. And this is a forum for you guys and what you want to talk about. So there are no wrong ideas. They're just ideas. We have discussion. So I really appreciate everybody.
I think on Friday we need to talk about the cost of tequila and the opportunities in tequila as an investment. That'd be a good way to end Friday.
I would rather have Patrick update us on the stripper index.
Yeah.
I'll try and get you some entertaining information, smutty.
That is entertaining, Patrick.
Well, they go hand in hand, right? So tequila and strippers. and bail bondsmen. Put those three together and you'll have an idea how the economy's doing.
Absolutely. Does anyone else have anything else to throw in here before we sign off? We've got 1 minute till the market opens, and just be careful. I mean, I showed you on the indices, we're still moving sideways. there's a lot of momentum plays out there. If you play in momentum, which is fine, just, put in manage your risk with stops if you can, like Margaret couldn't with Rolls-Royce. She's going riding, so hopefully Rolls-Royce doesn't go off the cliff when she's out riding her horse. But be careful. Always protect your gains. You don't have to be in the market every single day. Don't get emotional. Have a trading plan or an investment plan. And you're always welcome to get on the Discord and ask either Trent or I or anyone on the Discord is willing to get on and discuss. So utilize that and have a good day.
All right. Y'all have a
Yeah.
good one.
Thank you.
See you later.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Peace.
Thank
Good
you.
job.
Y'all
Bye-bye.
have a great day. Live.